Hey guys, this is Illusion PODFIC, and today we're going to be reading Green Through and Through by another fucking Robin. This is Chapter 17. Stephanie is looking forward to her next lesson. She's always loved PE, the way her heart beats slightly quicker, the hot, dry feeling on her throat when she breathes, but mostly she loves the unequivocal look of terror on the faces of her classmates as they realize they are on the team opposite her in dodgeball. Sure, she no longer finds push-ups and squats all that physically taxing, but her love of the lesson has only increased. Stephanie Brown is the dodgeball queen of Gotham Prep, and those scrawny nerds are right to tremble before her in fear. She's making her way over to the sports hall from her free period reading, playing Flappy Birds on her phone and snapping Harper, and silently threatening Cass's tutors when they made her try and pronounce difficult words in the library. She's humming to the music in her expertly concealed AirPod and plotting about how to best tumble Duke. It's practically school initiation by now. This is before she sees a boy with a brown mop of hair standing awkwardly in the middle of the corridor. She sneaks behind him and leans over his shoulder for her, whispering, "You lost?" The boy jumps and whirls around, hands up and ready to block by his face. Well, that's not a good sign. She raises her arms in an implicating gesture. "Hey, whoa, you just looked a bit confused." Steph's looking at him, trying to gauge whether that response was a result of bullying or abuse, when she notices the white streak through his bangs and immediately recognizes him as Peter Parker, the zombie boy, Duke's new BFF. She looks him up and down in an exaggerated way before announcing, "No way! You must be Duke's friend Peter. Do you have PE now?" She leans in and whispers conspiratorially, "Is that why you're standing like a lost duckling?" Peter lowers his guard. "Lost duckling? Me?" He mumbles to himself, and Steph almost bursts out laughing because the resemblance is uncanny. Instead, she takes a step back, closes one eye, and lines up her fingers like she's taking a photo. After a second, she announces, "Yeah, nope, totally a lost duckling." Peter makes an indignant squawk that she ignores, instead opting to sling an arm around his shoulders. "So, Ducky, why are you lost?" I don't know which changing room to use." "What? He doesn't... Oh. Oh. No problem, quick question. How do you feel about breaking and entering?" Peter heavily objected to breaking and entering, as it turns out. However, Steph is stubborn and managed to convince him to allow her to pick the lock of the disabled bathroom. That's why Steph is currently in her best bouncer stance, outside in the hallway, death glaring anyone who gives her confused looks, which are very few and far between, mostly by the younger years who don't yet know her by her reputation of the girl who broke the nose of that pedo teacher. Peter emerges a few minutes later in his PE uniform, an ill-fitting white t-shirt and baggy Wonder Woman sweatpants that are navy but could pass as black, if not given a second glance. His head bowed down self-consciously, holding an overstuffed backpack with both hands. Steph sends him what she hopes is a reassuring smile and points at his backpack. "You're going to want to put that in your locker or something. Rich people won't steal your shit, but they'll definitely break it. Especially that dipshit Edson Bright." "Thanks," he says, still reserved and shy to an extreme. "No problem," she responds, hoping her cheery attitude will bring him out of his shell. "Now are you prepared to lose spectacularly at dodgeball?" "Who says I'll lose?" he challenges, nervousness slipping from his tone. "Oh, I like your confidence. But unfortunately, Duckling, no one beats me at dodgeball. I'm the undefeated champion of Gotham Prep." She flexes her bicep as she speaks to illustrate her point. A sly grin makes its way onto Peter's face, and he looks her in the eyes. "You want to bet?" Peter, Duke, and half of his class are lined up opposite Steph and her half of the class. On the other side of the neat line of foam balls, Steph can see Duke lean over and whisper in Peter's ear, "Do you know why Stephanie is looking at me like she just broke out of Arkham?" Peter leans back and stage whispers, "I may or may not have challenged her to a dodgeball duel." His entire team looks at him with varying looks of betrayal and outrage. A couple scrawnier kids look like they say quick prayers. A truly evil grin makes its way onto Steph's face. She loves her reputation. "Okay, kids," Coach Wilkes says as he steps onto the pitch. "You know the rules. No crying, no contact, no headshots. And nothing above the waist counts, and Miss Brown is only allowed to wield one ball at a time." Everyone nods and Coach Wilkes steps back and blows his whistle. Steph rushes forward and grabs a slightly misshapen ball, slinging it at Duke's knee. He dodges, and she kicks a second ball into her hand to aim again. The rest of her team quickly follows her example, knowing full well that if they don't help and Steph loses her streak, they'll have to watch their backs for the rest of their lives. They also know that the other team's strategy is to throw everything they have at Steph in the hopes of getting her out quickly, and that leaves them open to attack. Steph herself stands in the middle of the court, making herself a target and diverting the opposing team's attention. It's not like she'll get hit. She dodges bullets and blades on a daily basis. Foam balls are laughably simple, and that's why they're so fun. Dodging and ducking and jumping are second nature to the former Batgirl. The whining of the opposite team only serves to fuel her as she slings her weapon, a red foam ball that is older than her and looks like it has a bite taken out of it, at her helpless targets. The other team is dropping like flies, and Steph's face widens at the growing look of horror on Duke's face. Soon it's 75% of Steph's team against Peter and Duke, with Duke on offense and Peter on defense, catching incoming balls and slowly whittling down on Steph's line of offense. That's before Steph manages to hit Duke's knee with an inconspicuous underhanded ball, while Peter's distracted by Steph's teammate all bombarding him at the same time. Now Peter has to go on the offensive. He'll let down his guard, and Steph will win. Peter seems to sense the shift as Duke leaves the pitch and starts throwing balls at her team instead of catching them and handing them off. If Steph redirects one of his throws so it hits Edison in the dick, that's no one's business but her own. That douchebag tried to flush Peter's bag down the toilet and thought she wouldn't notice. Prick. But his method isn't sustainable, and a well-aimed shot at the calf catches him out. Coach's shrill whistle pierces the air, and Steph jumps in the air and whoops, handing out high fives to her teammates, both those who lasted till the end and those who didn't. Well, everyone except Edison and his cronies. They all put in a really good effort, and she's proud of them. Steph has a competitive streak, sure, but she's not a bitch. After that, she runs over to Peter and punches him playfully on the shoulder. You did so good. I don't think anyone's lasted that long against me. Then she turns to Duke and narrows her eyes. C-. Duke opens his mouth in disbelief. C-? I deserve better than a C-. Steph raises an eyebrow and turns to look Peter up and down, taking the scrawny boy who outlasted a bat. Nah, you have no excuse, Duke. You still get C-. I demand a vote. Okay then, Ducky, you're the tiebreaker. All those in favor of Duke Thomas's grade being changed, raise your hand. Duke places his hand firmly in the air and Peter nervously raises his. Sorry, Steph, I think he did pretty well. She shakes her head in mock disappointment. The betrayal, Peter, honestly. But never let it be said that Stephanie Brown doesn't respect democracy. She pauses for dramatic effect. D+. What? Your grade is changed. You lost points for being unsportsmanlike. Unsportsmanlike my ass. This is so unfair, Duke whines, while Peter hides his snickers behind his hand. Deal with it, Thomas. Cass. Cassandra settles in her seat at the family table in the school canteen, letting out a long breath. English tutors are not fun to talk to. They make her use long words that make her tongue move in too many directions at once and make sounds from places in her mouth that she didn't think sounds are supposed to come from. If she has to see the word foreign ever again, she'll be left with no choice but to resort to violence. At least Stephanie came to visit during her nothing lesson today. Cass's tutors are patient, but they are even more so when her purple friend is there with the eyes that broadcast threats so loudly that everyone can see them, not just Cass. Her twin Batgirl was on her phone a lot today, sending funny faces to Harper. Cass likes to see the messages they send back and forth. They're easy to read because they have no words, just silly faces and close-up photos taken far too close to Colin's forehead. But Steph had to rush off quicker than usual today, hands flying over each other in malicious excitement, smiles stretching over her face. Cass had expressed interest in why her sister, because they are sisters, was so excited, only getting a very fast sentence in response. Cass is glad that Steph uses her hands so much when she talks, because otherwise she would have been left very confused. At least she knew that someone was going to throw something, and there would be a celebration. Steph's miming looked very similar to how she talks about fights with rogues. Cass would be worried if it wasn't clear how much Steph was looking forward to it. Cass did not understand very well, but gave 2 thumbs up of encouragement, receiving a smile that was all teeth and a hasty wave. She is glad that Steph was happy, but very sad that she had to read alone. She wished that her gruff older brother was there. He pretends to not enjoy her company, but she can see through him. He didn't know her before, has no anger for her. She is very grateful that he has at least gotten over his hatred of Bruce and his fear of the family, enough to meet her twice now. Cass found that despite his low, rough voice, he can talk for hours about books and words and make them sound interesting. She'd expressed her distaste for books to him at their second meeting. She had snuck into one of his many nests, too hungry to keep flying home when her stomach growled so loudly that she could hear it over the wind in her ears. He had been startled and waved his weapons. He barely relaxed when he saw that it was her. But Cass could see the fear beneath the irritation and, in an attempt to build some sort of something with him, asked about his books strewn about his nest like decoration. He had immediately loosened, speaking fast words that Cass had yet to learn, but his fondness for the stories was loud and clear. He asked her what she thought of books when she had flopped face first into the sofa and signed H-A-R-D. Jason had taken her frustrations as a challenge. He took out thinner books and traced the lines of letters with her, breaking every so often to wave his hand and speak loudly in a playful way that mimicked their biggest brother. It had been startling to see her big brother so relaxed and happy, not at all like their first meeting in the cave, when he was all stiff and angry and silently screaming at their father that he wanted to run, run, run. He had softly explained to her how punctuation is like body language for words, showing her how an ellipsis is for a pause, and you can tell what kind by the words either side. How if there are lots of full stops, then there are a lot of little pauses. It makes the sentence quick, and that can mean a lot of things, like guilt or excitement and nervousness. Her big brother made reading a lot easier, but not easy. Cass will be glad there will be no more reading after she eats. Instead, she will go into a small room and make sure that she can talk with her hands as well as her mouth. ASL, it's called. It is much easier than words and sounds because Cass spends a lot of her life learning how to move her body, so finger movements are easier than mouth movements. It is easier to link the exaggerated emotive movements of hands and faces to tone and context than it is to link completely new sounds and symbols. Cass likes learning ASL because it gives her options. Cass likes having options. However, she will wait for her family to eat with her, filling the air with happy, laughing noises, even though she can't wait to go home. Eating, she's found, is better when it's shared. Her baby brother sits down first, huffing and puffing, head face down on the table with lots of whiny, groany noises. She taps his hand to get her to look at her, so she can ask what's wrong with her eyebrows. In response, he grabs a book from his bag and opens to a page pointing to the top where there is a word. Just one, underlined and surrounded by angry and sad frowny faces. Cass' fingers hover over each letter, sounding them out in her mind. E-S-S-A-Y. Cass doesn't know what that is. She signs as much to her tired bat brother. He briefly explains, writing, lots, quickly. Oh, that sounds very bad. Cass pats his hand twice, saying that she is very sorry. Tim looks like he is about to thank her, or perhaps agree, when he gets distracted by something over her shoulder, eyes shining in fondness. Cass spins around in her chair and is immediately enraptured by what she sees. It is the family's newest baby, Duke, and her best friend, Stephanie. But they are not what caught her eye. No, it is the boy walking between them, if he is even a boy at all. He has big, bright eyes, smoldering green like burning coals, irises just slightly longer and thinner than they should be. He barely blinks them at all. He smiles a lot, evident by the dimples in his cheeks. But when he laughs, there is a slight rumble underneath that isn't quite human. She notices the way his skin is pale and bluish, a bit like a corpse, but not? It has an odd shine to it, not the waxiness of a dead body, it's duller than that, like a fingernail or plastic. Cass imagines that if she were to reach out and poke his skin, it would be slightly armored. He swivels his whole head towards whoever is talking, like an owl or a camera. But most intriguing of all is his musculature. Cass doesn't have the right words, and she doubts she ever will. From what she can see from his walking and hand gestures, he is completely lacking in extensive muscles, but still has his flexors intact, which means something other than his muscles moving his body parts, making his movements fluid and smooth and utterly mesmerizing, like water or magic. But despite that, he is so deeply human, the way his shoulders roll forward and his head ducks into himself self-consciously, the way his fingers knot and tangle together up near his sternum, the way he looks up while talking and bites his lip when he's listening. Cass watches him how she watched ballet when she saw it for the first time, how her baby bat brother looks at his favorite photos, how her gruff older brother looks at words on a page, utterly fascinated. The boy breaks away from his siblings and not legally sibling, and off towards the crowd of people waiting in a vaguely structured queue for food. As her table fills out, she slams her hands on the table, grabbing everyone's attention. Who? She sends as she points steadily towards the moving gaggle of hungry students. All three of them respond in unison, P-E-T-E-R. She looks at them each with feral curiosity glinting in her eyes. Zombie boy? They all nod, and Cass holds her newest sibling's eyes for a second longer than the rest. He gives an almost imperceptible nod, and she has to restrain herself from once again slamming her fist on the table, this time in excitement. Cass sits, vibrating in anticipation, for 3 minutes before Peter reemerges, this time with a heaping tray of food in his hands. His eyes scan the room, hesitating over their table before he shakes his head and starts walking to an empty spot. Cass elbows Stephanie in the ribs, and she stands up, waving and saying his name loudly. Peter sees this, of course, and briefly scrunches his eyebrows in confusion before he gains that embarrassed resigned look that his siblings do after an Alfred scolding and makes his way over. He slides next to her and her two oldest younger brothers, looking like the biggest bird in the family, with his fluidity and grace, but also like a feather drifting and fragile. He greets everyone by name out loud, except for her. For her, he sends, "Hello, my name is P-E-T-E-R, Peter." He spells it out and then uses a sign name. It's the sign for clumsy, but to her it has always looked like when her biggest brother uses his long stick for balance when he walks on his tightrope. A fitting name, she supposes, clearly gifted out of friendship by his grieving smile. "Your name is C-A-S-S? She excitedly agrees. He knows sign. They can talk, and he even uses the right grammar. Her tutor says that's quite important. Even her brothers and sisters seem surprised, watching the way that Peter interacts with their family, joining in on laughs and scoldings, and pretending to be upset by letters. It is very enjoyable. Cass wonders how long Peter will stay a not sibling for. She doubts it'll be very long. Alright guys, and that is the end of chapter 17 of Green Through and Through by Another Fucking Robin. I hope you guys liked it, and I'll see you next chapter.